Ashigalan Scorpio, I'm medicine, and this is my medicine wheel. And this is a Metascope divination, which basically means that it's an integration between astrology, tarot, numerology, intuitive knowing, um, um, geomancy, and just feeling. Whatever tends to come up at this time, that's what's going to be discussed. So this forecast is for the period between uh, September 23rd and October 3rd, which this year in 2019, this marks the first initiative point, the first trimester of Libra. Um, Libra initiates the autumn. And by causing us to question and re-question and rethink about the things that we know, and ask ourselves if we really, you know, Libra tends to cause confusion. Libra is a trickster. It causes us to question that which we think we know, and it challenges us to question that which we know, and that how we've identified ourselves. Libra causes us to question that. Libra begins here in the west in the time of autumn, right next to Scorpio and Sagittarius. Libra energy causes us to question. The first trimester has to do with the shaman of birth. And the shaman of birth has to do with, first of all, you have to understand something. Before anything is physical, it's spiritual. Before anything happens on a physical level, it always happens on a spiritual level. It's a feeling. It's an inner knowing that you get. It's an intuitive knowledge, intuitive knowing that you get, that such and so is going to happen, that I'm going to have a baby with this person. You have to see it or feel it inside of yourself before it actually happens. It's that intuitive knowledge that allows you to continue moving along the lines until you get to that place where it's actually become physical. And that which you intuitively knew becomes physical, becomes materialized here in the north. So this is what we look at with the shaman of birth. We look at inner knowing. We look at communication between the conscious and the unconscious realms. Um, and and how that inner knowing, we don't necessarily, it's like a mother back in the day. A mother might have intuitively knew what her child was going to be, right? If that child was going to be a boy or if that child was going to be a girl. But the mother intuitively knew what that child was going to be before there was ever sonograms, before you ever got to go to the doctor to find out what my child is going to be. There was intuitive knowing to what your child is going to be. Libra begins that process, communication through intuition, that intuitive knowing. Libra is actually a very intuitive force, but it also understands how to communicate between the conscious and unconscious. It understands how intuition can communicate with logic, and the mental can communicate with the emotional. That's really what we look at here. We look at that inner knowing, and we allow that inner knowing to impregnate us with an energy, whatever that looks like. If that's a baby, if that's a dream, if that is some sort of creation, an idea. But there's this inner knowing, you know, of what's going to happen, of what's going to. You ever had that before, where you go into a relationship or you go into a situation and you have that intuitive knowing of what's going to happen, but maybe you follow your gut feeling, maybe you don't, and it ends up happening. It ends up materializing exactly what you felt when you went into the relationship or you went into the environment. Exactly what you felt, whether it was for good or for bad, ended up happening. and you didn't listen. Let's say it was a situation that you knew it was going to be all bad, but you ended up going in there anyway, and then you didn't listen to your intuition. You knew how it was going to end up. Your intuition told you how it was going to end up, but you didn't listen. You wanted to go in there anyway, and then it ended up materializing exactly what your intuition had told you. So Libra begins that begins that communicating, communication with your intuition. Communication with your intuition. That's an inner communication versus an outer communication. Even though Libra is an air sign and definitely an externalized energy, Libra's energy in itself works on internal communication, communicating with your intuition, learning how to speak to your intuition, learning how to receive information from your intuition, and allowing that information to be transmitted to another one. That is the art of communication, right? Anytime we look with air signs, we're looking at communication. Communication happens when one person receives information and gives that information. That's communication. Receive information, give information. Receive, give, feedback, giving, that whole thing. And so we're looking at learning how to communicate with the intuitive communicator, with the intuitive speaker. That's the feminine side, our intuition, our gut feeling, what spirit, the spiritual level, what spirit is talking about. We learn how to communicate with that. This is different from communicating with the spoken word, with being verbal, communicating with the spoken word, communication through our actions, our communication with the spoken word. We're looking at communication with our feelings, and we're looking at communication with psychic intuition, how that communicates with us, signs and symbols. We're looking at our minds. We're looking at what we're thinking on the inside of our minds. We're taking a look at that. We're closing our eyes. We're reflecting on it. We're contemplating about it. We're observing it. We're experiencing what's going on inside the mind, inside the body, inside the heart. And that really brings about an initiation. That really initiates us. Because when we can close our eyes and when we can look inside the mind, when we can look inside of ourselves, we begin to that meditative space where we're able to be cognizant of what's inside the mind and also how to detach from it. That initiates the West energy where you're able to go deeper. See, because that's how we start. We start here just in the surface with the Libra energy where you're able to close your eyes and meditate and detach and contemplate and listen to your inner self. We start there on the surface, and then we get into Scorpio energy where we take that a step further. We go so much more deeper. And then we eventually get to Sagittarius energy where we just allow the whole thing to take us over. We allow that deeper inner knowing to take us over completely, and to be in a state of oneness with it, and in a state of not just dancing with the thunder, but being the thunder with the Sagittarius energy. So this is what this time of year is about. This is what autumn is about. This is what the first trimester of autumn is about. It's about marriage. It's about the birth of a new idea, the birth of something. It's about inner knowing. That's what the shaman of birth is about an inner knowing that has impregnated your body, a deeper inner knowing that has impregnated your body, a feeling that you've got. But you don't necessarily tell anybody about it. You don't necessarily share that feeling with anybody because, like we were talking about before, right, Scorpio, it's that intuition, it's that instinctual, that gut feeling that you get that you don't necessarily talk about it, but you just have this inner knowing. Maybe you ignore it, maybe you don't. This is what we're looking at. That's the birth, right? That inner knowing, what's coming up, that unconscious inner knowing that, maybe on one end you have a conscious knowing, but on the other hand you have an unconscious knowing. And we're looking at that unconscious knowing, and we're looking at how the pair of them work together in partnership. We're trying to this is like the marriage. We're creating that partnership, and we're learning how the two of them work together to create. inner knowing versus externalized knowing versus outer knowing, how to create that partnership, how to create that sacred marriage with one another, how to come together and be one versus my intuition says this, but I say that. Learning how to compromise with the two and work together as one. And that's just like a relationship, right? It's just like any other partnership, except in this manner, you're building this marriage, this partnership with yourself versus are different, a different aspect of yourself, your unconscious self and your conscious self. You're learning to build a partnership with that. So that's really what we're looking at with this energy here. Um, so this happens to be in your 12th house, which means that the Libra energy for you completes a year cycle for you. For you, it completes a year because your year begins in your new year begins in the Scorpio season. That's your new year. It begins in the Scorpio season. Okay, so this energy here being in the 12th house, um, we're completing a season for you, which means that your energies are beginning to sort of dissipate. This whole idea of identity, if you will, and self-centeredness. This is like the culmination. This is like the end result. This is like the ultimate selfless act. This is like literally, you know, everything about who I was has completely dissipated. So everything about who you have been for this past year, since your last birthday, since your last solar year, it's beginning to dissipate. It's beginning to all kind of go away. And we're beginning this new year. So this year requires lots of rest. This period for you requires lots of rest. You know, there's going to be lots of dreams happening here for you. Chances are, you know, you may begin to dream about, maybe you begin to dream about partnerships. Maybe you begin to dream about relationships. Pay attention to your dreams. Your unconscious self could be trying to tell you something in your dreams at this time that you need to be focused on and paying attention to, because that's going to inspire you forward. We go into the collective when we get to the 12th house. We go into the collective. We're out of the personal and we're going into the collective, which in itself can drive a lot of people crazy if they're not used to collective energy. Scorpio has sort of a an advantage to the 12th house energy because Scorpio is a water sign. And the 12th house is a water energy. That's Pisces right there. So Scorpio has an advantage to the 12th house energy, which means that Scorpio can potentially do good. But where I can see a potential issue, a potential one, I'm not saying it is, where I can see a potential issue happening here is Scorpio is more about personal emotions and personal feelings and personal sexuality. Pisces is more about collective feelings and collective emotions and collective sexuality and collective personality. This is why they always talk about how the 12th house is the house of institutionalization, because the 12th house often has something to do, you know, it's a collective energy. Pisces in itself is a collective energy, which means that Pisces true power, Pisces in its true power is open and receptive to collective thought, collective feeling, collective belief system, collective. Everything is collective with Pisces. Everything is personal with Scorpio. But the two of them are emotional creatures and feeling creatures and sexual creatures and even spiritual creatures. So that's where the two of them can come together. But Pisces, you know, being in Pisces, it can be very uncomfortable because you're in collective feelings versus personal feelings, which can be very uncomfortable for someone who's not used to that sort of vehicle, if you will. Um, and Pisces tends to be the spiritual backbone. Pisces tends to be that place of purity. Pisces tends to be that space where you're absolutely free from all adulteration, from all, outside energies that are not your own. Because when you come into the world, the more that people see you, the more that people experience you, the more that the world experiences you, the more that energies start to attach to you that are not your own, for good or for worse, good or bad, doesn't really matter, or indifferent. Energies begin to attach to you that are not really your own. So Pisces, when we get to the 12th house, those energies are cleansed and cleared. You are purified of those energies. It's like a pollution that Pisces dissipates and goes away. You can kind of think about Pisces like the misty vapor, that invisible misty vapor that is unseen, versus Scorpio being the deep abyss, the deep watery abyss that looks like it has no beginning, no end. And so, you know, what we're really looking at here, just in here, I become aware of my dreams at this point. If you happen to have the shaman of birth, Libra happens to be here in your 12th house, I become very aware of my dreams at this point. I'd have this feeling of remembering where I came from, remembering what my backbone is, and really kind of coming back in. And you know, the 12th house is a place of secrets. Once again, we talk about secretive energy. The 12th house is a place of secrets. It's the things that happen behind the scenes that are responsible for recreating us to be what we need to be. The 12th house is our home of our personal dream well in some space. It's like the dream well, where your dreams come from, where your collective dreams come from. Collective dreams, as far as Pisces teaches us, that we have more than one way of being. We have more than one identity, more than one title. We are not just one thing. We are all things. We are the many one. We are many things in one well. And so whenever we go to the 12th house, we're dipping back into that well and and transforming. Who do I want to be for the new year coming around for myself? Okay, well, this is who I want to be. So that's what we do, is we go into the well. We go into the collective well, and we find out who we want to be. We clear ourselves. We completely clear ourselves of who we were, and we go into that collective well and fill out who we want to be. And this is going to make you very sensitive, because Pisces energy is a collective energy. It can feel like dream walking. It can make you especially sensitive to feelings of other people, especially empathetic, especially compassionate, and you might start to pick up on other people's energies. That's part of why this is the house of institutionalization. You're picking up on so many other people's energies. It's a very sensitive energy. Pisces is a very sensitive energy. Um, you know but to learn to be in partnership with it right now. See, this is probably where you need to learn to be in partnership with the collective. As a Scorpio, you have more personalized feelings, not collective feelings. But the shaman of birth could be teaching you on some level how to be in communication with the collective, as well as the personal, how to be in partnership with it, how to marry the two together. You know, there could be that, but this is a secretive force. It works behind the scenes, just like the Libra energy in itself tends to work behind the scenes. Only difference, well, one of the biggest difference between Pisces and Libra is that Libra is an air sign, and Libra is automatically given to being more externalized than Pisces. Pisces is a lot more invisible and a lot more behind the scenes. Pisces does not really communicate with words. Libra tends to communicate with words. Libra might be a medium, for example. You know what I mean? Like someone who communicates with the dead, and communicate and acts as an intermediary between the living and the dead. That might be Libra energy, where Libra is receiving word messages from the dead and giving those messages to the living. That might be Libra energy right there. You understand? Pisces energy, on the other hand, is like completely behind the scenes. It's completely in the invisible realm. And so Pisces energy, very sensitive, very collective feeling wise, you know, um, uh, not really like out in your face, not really like a word communication, but more of a very reflecting energy. Pisces tends to simply reflect. So there's some big differences there. But the two of them can work together, you know. There can be this, inner dream of what a relationship looks like. You may even begin to have past life dreams about relationships, that may happen too, about certain relationships in your past life, even if it's past years, or even if it's a past life altogether, a past incarnation. It's possible that you may begin to dream up past life partnerships, and you may begin to have like a, it's possible that you can begin to have past life dreams happen, where a partner from a past life comes into this life, and this partner, is speaking to you in your dreams. And so even though you might have an externalized marriage in the physical externalized world, there may be an invisible marriage that you might only experience when you get to this space. But you've got to be willing to rest up. Not really a good time to be active, so much active during this time of year for you. This is not so much a time to be active as it is a time to rest up and to be spiritually active. Yes, spiritually active, yes. Physically active, no. Not really a good time. It doesn't really support that. So we want to bring out the bones. And what I see is an inability to move. I see stuck. Where am I stuck at? I see that I'm stuck in the transition. I see stuck. I see a learning process. I see a want to be able to rise above certain traditions and certain belief systems and thought forms, but stuck. I'm seeing stuck, you know, unable to free oneself, to release oneself, to rise above, to transcend, to move forward. I see that here when it comes to the mind, when it comes to the learning process. And so it's difficult to transition into, wean yourself out of being the student, the learner, might be the situation, or being stuck in somebody else's way of being and learning to have your own way of being. I see a stuck energy going on there, where you can't remove yourself. But what I'm also seeing here with this West energy is that I am seeing, uh, experiencing inner experience, introspection, and strength. These are the stones of experience, introspection, and strength. This stone, you might be, sort of reviewing the experiencings of your past right now, which is completely okay, and laying them to rest, because that's what Libra energy does. Is Libra energy sort of, in a lot of ways, Libra energy has like a funeral or a wake ceremony. You know what a wake ceremony is? Where someone has passed on, um, and they're in a casket, perhaps in a home or in a building of some sort, and a whole bunch of people are there to give their last words to, to come see the person in the casket, and to give their last words and to pay their last respects, and to give their blessings and to share their secrets and all of that. Libra energy sort of has a wake with the past. Who I was is no longer who I am. Like, that person has passed away now with Libra energy. And Libra energy disengages and detaches from the past. And so I see this happening. And then deep. So the sun energy here, because this is your sun, this is the sun shell. The sun's energy is pointing towards you being deeply introspective, letting go of the past, really just kind of releasing your experiences, looking at your experiences objectively, releasing them, learning from any past mistakes, contemplating, reflecting on them, learning from them, and letting them go and putting them to rest. And then, I see, transformation happening here. So that's a progress to me because of the way that the shell is pointing, downward. I see progress happening. I also see transmutation happening with the transmutation bone. So, overall, maybe there was some stagnation. Maybe there is some stagnation or was some stagnation. Maybe there are some memories that you're going back to that have to do with an inability to become independent from all the thought forms and belief systems of others. But I am seeing here that I am turning this density into fuel. I'm burning it. I'm burning it all, burning it down, burning it all down, and turning it into fuel to feed the fire to move forward. So, things are looking forward for you overall. I'd say this is a pretty good read. Things seem to be looking pretty forward for you overall. And this one right here is where we look at sorrow. We're looking at grief and sorrow and mourning. And it's possible that your heart, the density, the heaviness has to do with some heartbreaking news that you've gotten. And that heartbreaking news has caused some gloominess and some despair, in your life. But it also seems to be motivating you in some way because this bone, if you will, is all about taking the dense energy and transmuting it. So whatever heartbreaking situation happened here, whatever losses happened here, whatever heartbreaking news may rear its ugly head at this time in your face, I think that it motivates you. I think that you turn that fear or that despair, I think you turn that into fire, and that it motivates you to move forward with your life. And I can see here that you're really focused on that inner work and really releasing and letting go and transforming yourself and coming anew. So, I see really good energy happening here with that. To some degree, I was getting for a moment that, you know, I did all of this. I put all of this time and effort into perhaps a partnership or a relationship, or, did all this, learned all this stuff. And now I have to try to find myself. I have to try to find my way out of it. I have to try to wean my way out of it. Is one of the things that I was hearing in my ear. Is it's like I put all this time and attention into learning, and to, whether that was a new religion, a new tradition, a new course, going a class, a study of some sort of education. But I put all of this, maybe it was backed by a relationship that you had, a love interest that you had, put all your time and attention in, and it inspired you to go out and learn whatever it was that you were learning here. But now you got to try to wean yourself out of it. And I see that there is this urge, there's this desire to beat that, to let go of it, to acknowledge it, to see it for what it is, to put it out on the table, to look at it from an objective space, and to really allow yourself to release and let go and put it to rest. Put it to rest, to have a wake for it, to say thank you so much for the lessons, thank you so much for the experience, thank you so much for what you've taught me. But now it's time for me to put this to rest. And I see you putting it to rest. So this is a really good, I see you letting it go, and I see it transforming for you. Whatever this is or was, I see all this transforming for you. So overall, this is going to be a very positive experience for you. It's going to be a very positive experience. Just be open. Just be open to the process. Be open. Be open to receiving from the spiritual well of the collective. Just be open to receiving from that spiritual well of the collective. You'll be fine. Spirit wants to impregnate you with something. It wants to allow something to come. You know, all you got to do is open up your entire self to it, not just your mind included, but your heart, your womb space, your body. Open yourself up to it as if you were a woman, opening herself up to a man. Whether you are male or whether you are a woman, open yourself up. Be submissive. Open yourself up. Let this person in. Let these energies in. Let it fill your cup. Let it impregnate you. Because that's what feminine energy does best, is it holds space. Masculine energy tends to work off of that space, get inspired by what's held by what is in the well. But feminine energy is really good at holding space. So really give yourself permission to open yourself up to the process. Just be open to the process. And what you may find here as well is that you're going to learn a lot of things about your history in the process too. You may end up learning a lot of things about your history somewhere along the way. You may find yourself in a space where you are ready to advance to a new level, a new way of being. So those of you who are looking at developing a new career at this time or advancing in the career that you're already in, this is promising to me because a spiritual well is being filled with something new, which means that wisdom, knowledge, spirit is impregnating your body with something new. For those of you who are looking at pregnancy, I would say it's highly possible with this energy being here in the Capricorn triad that you are definitely going to conceive. If you're hoping to conceive, this is a positive sign. I'm open to receiving. So it's likely that you might bear a child physically here pretty soon. So look forward. I look forward to all of this for you. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see what comes up. And I hope that this reading has really resonated with you in some respect, and that you can hear it and that you can receive it, and that it really speaks to you on some deeper level. And I hope that we can continue to be in circle with each other like this. I really enjoy these readings. I get deep into them if you haven't already noticed. And I can go even deeper. I can go on and on. But even a reader's got his limits. So I hope that this was enjoyable for you. I hope it was insightful for you. Hope you got a lot out of it. And I really do wish you well on your journey. A Galanor.